am. So, hey everyone, good evening to everyone, and welcome to another episode or session of Canton Coders. I'm really excited about the topic that we have tonight, and that topic is software skills for developers. Before I jump into the topic, I just want to give our standard Canton Coders disclaimer. Okay, here it is. The views and opinions that will be expressed tonight belong to the individuals and have no relation to their employer. These views are subject to be wrong, and we will debate some of those issues tonight. So without further fluff on my part, I think we'll just jump right into it. Tonight's format is going to be a roundtable panel, and I'll act as the moderator, and I have three really distinguished people managers with us today, and they'll share their thoughts and ideas on the topic. So without further ado, let's have them introduce themselves. We'll start with Bryce.
All right, thanks a lot, Gugu. So, hey everyone, glad to be here. And so I'm a director of software engineering at a software services company here in Ann Arbor, so close to Canton, but not quite there. So I'm excited to talk about soft skills. I think that it's a very valuable thing for everyone to master and practice and always learn from. I think that we grow in our career from soft skills. I grew by being able to learn from much stronger people than me early in my career, and I think it worked out that way because they wanted to work with me. And then on the flip side, I think managing and creating teams with practicing soft skills, helps on that side. So I think it's definitely no matter where you are in your career, it's very important, and I'm excited to talk around with you guys.
Very great.
I guess I'll pass it on to Caryn Holt.
Hey, my name is Caryn. I'm an engineering manager at a software company. I've been coding for 22 years. I've been paid to be in engineering for about 16 years. I started actually as a developer, and I've been a lead engineer, and then 2 years ago I shifted into people leadership. So what are soft skills? I think soft skills are kind of everything else that we have to do about being a good coworker, and being someone that you want to work with, and interpersonal skills, and kind of that the difference for me between, and I know that we have a question we talk about this, but it's a bit between just being a programmer and actually becoming a software engineering professional. And I think another reason that you have those skills is that just think about the people that you've worked with over the years that you've enjoyed working with, even if you haven't worked very long. What were those people like? And they weren't necessarily the best coders on the team that you had, but they were the easiest to work with. And that's really what soft skills are getting at: how to work with other people and help really make a successful team.
Thank you, Caryn. Matt.
Thanks, Gugu. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Clayson. I'm an engineer and currently manage a small team of 2 developers at a healthcare organization. So kind of to echo Bryce and Caryn, soft skills are, to me at least, are non-technical skills that impact kind of like how you work. They include things like communication, critical thinking, work ethic, time management, adaptability, empathy. We're going to dive more into those later. But I think they're important because they really give you, because having them give you a solid foundation throughout your career, regardless of what you do. And they can even trickle down into your personal life as well. These characteristics are something that you can't attribute to hard technical skills. Like, for instance, like your cold fusion background really doesn't come in handy now, but your ability to communicate well can always come in handy.
Definitely. Thank you. And I'll introduce myself. My name is Gugu Mahuza, and I'm a software developer, and I've also played the role as a people manager. And I've seen a difference from the time when I was strictly technical and being a technical lead with teams to the time when I actually had HR responsibilities for people. It's night and day. Thinking about people's career path, career growth, having them come to you and tell you about what's motivating them or demotivating them and trying to fix that, and just looking at your whole team and understanding what pieces to move around as far as having the team gel just correctly. A lot of what I look at in those situations are really soft skills. The technical bits, most people are technical, that's great, but the soft skills are really, really important ingredient. And I'm in the consulting space, and to some extent, 70, 60 and above percent is really soft skills as far as your communication skills, your interpersonal skills. Those are some of the things that really, really make you successful. All right, so we'll jump right in here. I heard a lot of you, one theme that I heard as you introduced yourself is career growth. So I want to start there. Why is it important to learn soft skills for your career growth? Matt, we'll go with you first.
So I think that they really help your career because, kind of to reiterate what I said a little bit, you can carry them with you. So regardless of what space you're working in, like you're a developer and you decide you want to go into management, your technical skills may not necessarily need to carry over, but your soft skills need to carry over. So I think that, that's kind of the main reason that they're so important, because of how they carry over to your career and even your like personal life. They're extremely useful.
Okay. And I like what you said there with the personal life, and I think I'll come back to that as well. Caryn, any thoughts on that?
I would say why it's important to your career growth is you can be. I've worked with. I'm sure a few of us have worked with. I'll be kind, brilliant jerks is the work safe term for it. There's another version of that term that goes around, who are technically brilliant and can do amazing work. But ultimately, when you're, like I said, you could be the most technical person I know, but if you can't communicate those ideas out and share them with your team and share them with people who aren't even technical, then your ideas aren't going to go anywhere. So for me, when I think about career growth and soft skills, one of the things that's really important to understand is that it's not just coding. You need to be able to work with other people and get your ideas out there. And you will also work with other. I coach people, whether they go into technical leadership or people leadership from an engineering path, is that leadership in general requires coaching people and working with people and not necessarily being the smartest person in the room. And I think for me, it's just, when I think of soft skills in your career growth, is that it's how you really kind of break out of being an entry-level programmer into actually becoming a more senior engineer and even going into leadership down the road. So you have to be able to communicate with people and work with people.
Okay. So it sounds like, to some extent, the lack of software skills may stifle growth. Is that a fair assessment, Bryce? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with what both Matt and Caryn have said. I think it all comes down to in majority of the cases we're building things with other people, right? It just comes down to it. I think that the thought process, I think people when we're younger, maybe we think, oh, we get into coding, I can just be in my own room and I can just code brilliance and and that's what you need. I think there is that. I think there is some places where that is. I think the majority, at least from my experience, I know you and I are both in the consulting side of things. You're going to work with people either on the client side or a team on your own side, and you got to. you got to be able to work with people. People have to be able to trust you. You have to trust others. You have to learn from them. You have to help teach others, right? It's just integral in how you build, how you collaborate. That I don't, in my opinion, I don't think there is development without the need to work with people, or at least understand other people. And that's why I think this is such such an important topic for us to discuss.
Great. So let's talk about the entry level into software development during the interview process. When you are interviewing people, what things to you scream out, this person has got good soft skills? Do you look for those, or are you looking just primarily, are they technical? Caryn, I'll let you go first on this one.
You have to look at both.
Okay.
Ideally, and soft skills even at entry level are essential, because I know that maybe this person isn't experienced, but what I look for example, if I'm interviewing someone that for an internship, so very entry level, can they explain the projects that they worked on? Can they talk about examples of working with people successfully, and even talk about things that didn't go well? Did they learn something from those experiences? Um, as programmers, it's not a solo sport. It's a team sport. Programming is software development is a team sport. You have to work with the team, and you have to be able to share and communicate. So for me, if I had two candidates and one was technically brilliant, the best programmer I've ever encountered, but had, say, poor communication skills, and I had someone that was about average on technical skills and slightly above average on soft skills, I would go with that second candidate ultimately, because I know that first candidate may have great ideas, but if they're not sharing those ideas and they can't work with other people, they're not going to go anywhere. Well, the second candidate, maybe they're not as good of a programmer, but they can work on that. They can become a better programmer. They'll take classes, they can develop those skills. But I know that they'll have an easier time working with the team. And that was something early in my career I didn't understand when I was a computer science student, how many people I'd be working with once I actually got into the field.
Yeah, I would say, I think just like you, I didn't understand it early in my career, where I thought I was a pretty good developer, but I did go to interviews and I had other people picked ahead of me. And for that very reason, was I communicating clearly? So I know from experience that that can certainly hold you back in some cases. Bryce, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. I think it's when I'm interviewing someone, I don't want to hear them say I know everything, or I'm an expert in anything. That's when I lose majority of my interest, right? Because I think it's not, the moment that you stop, um the moment you think you know everything, you will never know everything. You will stop learning, and I think it's all about learning. I think I'm less interested in people um memorizing and knowing knowing the answer. I want to see how will they get to the answer, right? If they don't know something, how will they learn it, right? So it's sometimes it's hard to kind of ask this question in test, but like I want that. I just want someone to say, I don't know. I will Google it. I will try X hours and until I get it. I will follow this process. To me, that's much more interesting, because that's how I know you will succeed as a developer, right? That's what we do all the time. I think, like you guys have both said, when you start out early, it's a lot of stress that, oh, I have to know it. I have to just ace this. If I get one question wrong, then my whole career is over. And I think it's like we're wrong every day. I've learned. I'm on Stack Overflow every single day, and I'm 17 years into this, right? 18 years into this, and so I think that I think that's a big part of it. I think it's the humility and the humbleness of not knowing. And just one quick anecdote, when I first moved here to Michigan, I came from Seattle, and I was at a company for 7 years. I was a developer. I knew that when I come to another place, I would take a junior developer role. I don't care. I have 7 years. I don't care. I just want to work for a bigger company and learn more than I learned at this small company for X amount of years, right? And so I think that really helped me, because it kind of I was able to then accelerate my learning, because I knew I didn't know everything, as opposed to, I see some people come in. I've been in the industry 5 years, 7 years. I'm a senior. I know everything. I think that it will constrain your growth. And it's not about the title per se as much as, I mean, I know that's very valuable, right? The title has a lot of things, but it's all about, in my opinion, what you learn and getting to the point where you can learn. So sorry, I've gone way over on this one, but I am very passionate about that for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, we see it in your face. So much passion. All right, Matt, Bryce stole your time, so you have 2 minutes. Go.
Yeah, I mean, just reiterating what both Caryn and Bryce said, I mean, the knowledge gap exists, and I think it exists like regardless of title or experience. Like you can have a developer that's been working for 1 year, a junior developer working for 1 year that knows something that a senior developer working 20 years doesn't know. So I think those soft skills really help kind of close that gap, or to bring that other person's knowledge to where the whole team's knowledge is, which is really important. And just to kind of, another thing that I kind of look for when I'm interviewing is simply like, how prepared are they when they come in for the interview? Are they coming in with like decent questions? I've had people ask me, what job am I applying for? I mean, like those types of things are a sign that you probably are lacking in some of these soft skills. And not to say that it's hopeless, but it's something that will definitely impact the final decision on after that interview.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're done with the interview process. Now you hired Jane and John. They're on your team. What are you looking for in the first 3 months? What should a new developer be definitely doing? I'll rephrase it to say, what makes a good teammate on the team? Matt, you want to go first?
Yeah. So I think there are probably like 2 big traits that I think of as like kind of a good teammate. Probably the first one is how you take willingness to accept feedback from others. How you not only your reaction to feedback, but also do you do anything with that feedback? And then probably another one is probably just how much better are the teams that you're on? How do you contribute to growth? And I think that kind of like exuding a positive attitude and having a positive outlook on things is kind of important. I mean, kind of what happens a lot of times in our development world is a lot of times we'll be working or spend a lot of times on features that are not really used by the end users, and there's a lot of complaints about that. So maybe like instead of like joining in and saying like, oh, they never use this piece and we've developed it and we spent hours on it, kind of look at it the other way and say, wow, that was really cool how we were able to get these 4 systems to talk to each other. Even though they're not using it here, you know, it'd be great to implement it in this next project, or even like maybe we could rework another project that that can implement that method or something like that. So I think that kind of that positive outlook helps. And then, like I mentioned, the trait about willingness to accept feedback. I've been in retrospectives where feedback is simple. There was an actual comment of something to the effect of, when I came back from lunch, I didn't have a chair to sit in. And that's when you get that feedback, that's like a pretty easy thing to fix as a leader. However, in this instance, the leader took it as more of a personal attack and more explained why the chair wasn't there. And while it's understandable that the project overall didn't go as well, so the leader was kind of frustrated, that's something that's kind of under the leader's control, and that's something that they can easily fix. So if instead the project leader had kind of listened to that feedback and accepted it and worked on the next project to take that back and fix that small issue, I think it would have helped the team grow. But in that instance, we had another project with that leader, and it really didn't go well. And it was simple things like not enough room to work, not enough space. So if they had kind of accepted and listened to that feedback initially, we would have had a much better outcome. There's like a kind of a good quote from this NBA coach, Doc Rivers, that I saw, it's average players want to be left alone, good players want to be coached, great players want to be told the truth. So kind of learning that, you know, this is the truth, accepting it and trying to figure out how you can fix it. I think those are some traits that make a good teammate.
Right. Points for mentioning the Spurs and Greg Popovich.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, after this round, we'll just pause for a little bit and try and take some questions from Slack, if anything. Caryn.
I think the first 3 months that I have a new team member, and this is actually regardless of experience level, and this problem can be actually a little worse with more senior people, is people need to listen and ask why we do something. There's a tendency that when, as engineers, we want to fix problems. And so we go to a new place, we go to a new employer, we see something that looks wrong to us. So what we do is we say, you're doing this wrong, and my last place did this, or I think we could do this instead. And they don't, and people are unlikely to listen and understand the context of why we do something. So for me, a sign that someone's going to be a good team member in the long run is someone that takes the time to listen, to understand the context of why something is being done before jumping in and starting to solution the problem. Because maybe we don't need to do a solution for that problem, or maybe it's a completely different solution because you didn't understand the problem. But in the first few months, I definitely look for someone that's going to listen to the team member and understand why we're doing the things we do before, you know, jumping in and telling us that we're doing it wrong and here's 20 ways we could do it better. So I would say it's just, I think, listening and trying to understand the context of why a process may exist or why we do something as a team before judging it, I guess.
Google, you're muted.
Yeah, to play the devil's advocate here a little bit, what if you are doing something wrong and that new person has a point?
Well, if they are doing something wrong, if I'm doing something wrong as a team, first of all, I'm open to feedback as a leader. But I think that in general, as humans, we're more receptive of that person. Say that someone thinks, Caryn, you're completely, miscommunicating the team objectives to us. If they took the time to understand why I communicate them the way I do, and then they said, okay, I now understand it, but here's why I think that there's a place of that they took the time to listen to me. They have some emotional intelligence and some empathy that they employed with that. We talk about those later, but it's a much easier when they're giving me constructive feedback. I know that this person isn't just, say, making a judgment. They actually took the time to understand why I'm doing something, and I'm going to just naturally be more receptive to it. And that's just with a human thing. We're going to be more receptive to people that we feel are empathetic to our situation, understand why we're doing something. So yes, new people can bring some great ideas in, but I think if they understand the context of why we do something, then their idea is going to be received a lot better from at most places.
Yeah, and where my head went with that, and where I was going with that, from what Matt said and what you are saying, is for everyone to realize that soft skills are not just for the new people. There's so much soft skills as a leader, as a people manager, that continue with you. You need to have, even so as a leader, that emotional intelligence that you're talking about, understanding where that other person is coming from, and instead of jumping onto them about the chair, the leader should have taken time to understand and be emotionally intelligent and have good soft skills to address the problem the right way. Bryce, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll be quick because I know I think you guys have hit everything. But yeah, soft skills. To your point, Google. I think it's not something you ever it's not something you ever are done learning. It's infinitely large. It's just kind of such a broad thing. So I don't think there's any kind of end goal. Just like as someone who one of my mentors told me, like, you don't become a leader, right? You're not a leader, right? You are learning how to lead and your leadership skills, but there's no destination, right? You haven't arrived ever, right? And so I think there's a lot of that. Just to kind of on the one of the best feedback I ever got was early in my career, and I think this was said to someone else on the team. Just take notes, right? Pay attention to detail. Take notes so that you don't forget, right? I think one of the biggest sign that someone is going to struggle is if they constantly make the same mistake and if they're not paying attention to detail. And these things can be solved by a very simple, have a notebook, write things down, come back to it. That will go such a long way. I think the moment someone keeps making the same mistake, that's when you lose a lot of confidence. I think I'm fine with anyone making any mistake. Just don't keep making the same mistake over and over again. And I think those things will take you very far.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions from Slack? And when we come back after this, we'll be here, of course. But after 2 minutes, I'll have you share some anecdotes about some epic failures in your career and software skills.
Definitely.
All right, let's look at the Slack. Do we have any question from Twitch?
So Twitch, we have a couple. Something I don't know if there are opportunities for entry level people. It is hard today for junior developers to get a job. Why do you think? Oh, that was the. Yeah, I definitely. Sorry, I'm just gonna jump in and sorry, Google.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna wait for you to tell me to jump. I think that this is a great question because I think I pride myself that my company we hire a lot of junior developers, people right out of boot camp, no formal education. But then I also know that we passed on some people as well too, right? So I think we have some wildly inconsistent sometimes. Hiring, and that's too bad. And so I would say that I both agree that it's hard, but I also don't think it's impossible because I know that there are companies like us that do, and I think a lot of companies are really it's a great opportunity to give people a chance early in their career. But I do understand the sentiment that I see on LinkedIn. I see a lot of people that have been looking for months, years maybe, and I know that cliche of like, okay, you can't get a job until you have experience, but then how do you get experience if you can't get landed? So I think it's definitely something in the industry that needs to be much better, and I think that's not the topic of this discussion, but I feel that I think that that's something that we desperately need to solve, and it's a complex problem.
I'd like to add something. So first of all, anyone on Slack, if you ever want to ask how I got my first coding job, I totally empathize with this problem because I graduated in 2002. I didn't get my first coding job till 2006, and in between there, I got a master's degree. And I didn't get I got the master's degree because I was going to get a master's degree anyway, but then I also decided I wanted to make it harder for them not to interview me. But I would say that there are definitely opportunities for junior engineers. It depends on the company. I would suggest if you have a particular interest in a larger company, if you can find people through networking that maybe work there to maybe understand how junior engineers can get into those companies. That's a good place. I won't say where I work, but where I work, there is a path for junior engineers. And if you ask them from my company, we would tell you how to get in as a junior engineer. But I would say that, one thing, if you're having trouble finding good opportunities, networking is a good way to get in front of people who work at those companies already, who can maybe give you tips or maybe even refer you in. Because sometimes referrals at large companies, you can go directly to the hiring manager and might skip an HR, like some kind of automated system that might be filtering out your resume. So I would definitely say networking is a good way if you're having trouble just to find people in those companies that you're interested in that maybe can refer you or to give you tips on how to get in.
Great, thank you. Before we jump into the stories, I've got 2 words that I want you to react to. I think they're important, but I want to hear what you guys think about it. Smiling and charisma. Are those important? Should I even smile even if it's a bad day?
Definitely you should smile.
Okay.
And you should have charisma. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I find on some of my teams it's really infectious, and sometimes we work under lots of stressful situations, and someone that just always comes with the right attitude goes a long way. It helps out the team. It boosts morale, and that's easy, right? It's not technical. Just smile, have charisma, talk to people, be approachable.
Yeah.
It goes a long, long way.
Yeah. If people want to work with, and no matter how good you, no matter how good you are or how bad you are, if people want to work with you and they want to help you, it will go a long way. You know, I just kind of anecdotally, like I work with a lot of contracting people from other contracting companies, right? We work for, you know, our client. We're working in a blended team with maybe another contractor, right? And I felt like I've seen a lot of like the side where people are kind of very abrasive to each other, and then it's like they're going to do the most minimum that they have to do so that they're not reprimanded, right? I've always taken the approach that I will befriend anyone, right? You're from some other company, you're from some other, you know, I'm gonna get to know you a little bit more, or at least I'm gonna be pleasant. And like you said, Google, I'm gonna smile, and I felt like I will get extra from these other firms. You know, the collaboration is there. You don't even think about like that we're competing. It's like you know, sometimes consultants can be kind of parasitic kind of relationship inside the host client. But I think if you're very nice and kind of you reciprocate and you care about them, it goes along. I feel like, just wrap it, I felt like I would get stuff that I otherwise wouldn't if I was just a total a-hole to someone, right? And I think that's just a very human, it's just a human thing, you know?
Yeah. Anyone want to jump on that? Thoughts, Aaron, Matt?
I would say, as far as, you know, Smiley and Charisma, I think as a woman, sometimes telling women to smile is a very loaded thing to say. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I think that being positive and being empathetic and friendly will get you far, very far. And so for me, I will say I'm not naturally a smiler. This is my natural face. So, um, one thing that I try to do is, you know, I don't want to come off as fake when I smile. I don't want to come off as somehow. I want to be genuine. So I definitely try to bring humor, and I try to make things level, make it kind of a fun environment for me, because then that joy is coming from somewhere very real. Um, but I would say that, as far as just, you know, if you're friendly, and also being friendly with people, even that maybe a different vendor, you never know who you're going to work with in the future. You never know who your future colleague's going to be. I interviewed a peer at my current employer a couple years prior, and he's now a colleague of mine. I started when I went to my current employer. I was introducing myself to my peers, and I was like, oh, he's like, you interviewed me 5 years ago. And my first thing was like, how did I do interviewing you? And apparently I was okay. He remembered me as being friendly, and like, you never know who you're going to run into. So I think I always kind of take it that even if I'm working with someone that might be a vendor or someone that's not on my company, they may be my colleague in a year. They could be my colleague in 3 months. I don't know. They might be interviewing me someday. You have to keep in mind that everyone that you interact with is a future colleague potentially, or someone that's going to maybe be a decision maker down the road. So it doesn't hurt to just be polite and be a decent human being to everyone.
Definitely.
Yeah. For the record, you are a smiley person. You smile a lot. There we go. All right. I like what you said there, and hopefully we get some time to circle back on trust and being genuine, right? Being authentic and gaining people's trust. Very important. Let's jump into some anecdotes here. Epic failures. Who's gonna go first? Bryce?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just give us one. And there's probably plenty, but let's just go.
Yeah, how much time do I have? Matt, Caryn, you want to cede some time for me? No, I've definitely failed a lot, and I think that you know, I think failing is good because you learn, right? And it's actually better if you haven't failed, it means you haven't really tried hard enough, right? And that's kind of a loaded thing, right? But okay, so the one that came to my mind was something about I'm clearly demonstrating now. Sometimes I have a tendency to not get to the point and kind of ramble, right? So I was on I've been working on this my whole career. It used to be much worse. I was on a call with a new client, existing client. We're trying to get more another project, and then I had my client partner was there with me. He was a notorious tough guy, but he helped me grow too. And I was just like, I didn't quite know exactly what I was talking about. And so that was one of the problems, but I just kept kind of like talking and not really making it clear. And all of a sudden this other guy, he was a super nice guy. It's kind of like, okay, I don't understand. I don't really know what you're saying. Like, I don't really, I mean, can you maybe start over again or something like that? And so I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah. So we got through it. And then after that, I talked to the client partner, right, who was kind of my mentor. That he was like, dude, you have to get this under control, or else you are not going to grow in your career. Like, he flat out told me this. It was very tough. I got very, it hurt, right? But then I started thinking, like, you know what? That's what it's all about. I remember that moment to this day. I remember how I felt. And it kind of every time when I start to kind of ramble, right now it's coming up, right? I'm starting to ramble. I'm kind of starting to spiral, right? I remember that moment, and so I think that's something that was I know that I failed in keeping it concise. Is the soft skill that I would like to highlight, and that's where I failed, and that's how I learned from it. So it's kind of like the trifecta for me.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, got one?
Yeah, I mean, there are like countless examples. I could probably think of a few today. I was showing a wireframe, and I don't know, the audience, just not knowing your audience, I think, is the problem I had there. Just maybe talking over their heads, and then the meeting ends, and their knowledge isn't gained at all from that hour meeting, and I've received no valuable input from the wireframe. So but I mean, just more general, I think I struggle with kind of imposter syndrome a lot, where you kind of doubt your own accomplishments. And then I think that leads to like a systemic, like a lot of soft skill failures, not being able to effectively communicate, not asking the right questions, because you're not sure if this question is, you're not sure if someone that actually knew what they were talking about would ask this question. And kind of the biggest thing that helped overcome that is kind of working on a team that you can trust, and just having that open and honest feedback helped me realize that pretty much everybody has those self-doubt. But if you can accept your failures, not be afraid to ask questions, and kind of putting some of your accomplishments in perspective, it can really help you develop your soft skills and become a better developer overall.
Yeah, excellent point. I think what I took from that is, and my own reflections, is just confidence is important, because lots of soft skills trickle down from there. If you have confidence, if you work with a team that builds your confidence, then are you going to say something that's out of line? Yeah, but if you've got confidence, you can say that with a straight face and roll with it and self-correct along the way. But you're absolutely right. When you lack some of that confidence, and I've seen it a lot in myself as well, you end up not really exposing and saying the things that you know, and you end up not asking the right questions, like you correctly pointed out. And I would say that happens to me sometimes. I've been in meetings with VPs, and suddenly I'm starstruck. Instead of my head's not really working at 100%, and the person that invited me is saying, "Well, I thought you're ready to go. What's going on?" Right? Sometimes that happens, and it all stems down from confidence. Yeah, thank you. Caryn?
I think the example that came to my mind when I thought about this was actually before I was coding, but I wasn't paid to code. So in college, I worked part-time as a sysadmin for a nonprofit on my college campus. And I think I think this is not unusual amongst people in the technical profession or scientific profession. I've left to my own devices, I have a very direct way of communicating. Like I think of communication efficient. Like I just want to get to the question, I want to get the answer, I want to get going. And so when someone would have a problem with something, for example, the printers weren't working, I'd go up to the front desk, and even if it was like first thing in the morning, it's when they had their coffee, I'd be like, "So you said your printers aren't working?" I was just that very kind of direct. So for me, that made perfect sense because I'm trying to be efficient because I was part time. I had so many hours in a day. I was trying to get everything done. And then I got a reputation for being very rude because I didn't ask people how they were doing, and people didn't think I was a very personable person or approachable person. And this actually, I almost lost the ability to do my senior project over it. So like it actually, so I had to, learn kind of the hard way. I had almost a very kind of negative on my academic career. And it's a trait that I commonly see amongst technical people because we tend to be very direct and efficient. And like my husband is a programmer. Sometimes when we're just talking about a problem, people have commented that we seem almost like robots. Like in front of, like if we're talking to us, about a problem, like for example, buying a car, we don't talk about our feelings about the car. We'll talk about the technical specs of the car or something like that. So um, that for me was something that I had to think about, is that I had to kind of remind myself very early in my career, say good morning, ask how their weekend was, be interested and engage with that person on a personal level before starting to talk about work. So that was a failure that I had very early in my career. I actually went for a couple of months before someone actually said something to me about it. But that's something I think of as that's kind of that came to my mind. I thought about soft skill failures on my part. That was a big one.
Hey, Caryn. Actually, I think you kind of answered it, but just to jump in here, I think someone in Twitch asked, "How did you end up finding out about that reputation?" Because I think that is a good topic in the sense that we need to be either self-aware or also understanding, how we elicit, how do we go out and find out what we are doing and how it impacts. So I guess if you or don't answer that question, but I just wanted to.
So I would say that the leader that I had at the time did have some soft skill problems himself, because he should have said to me, one thing I've learned as a leader is that the quicker you give someone feedback, the less of a problem it is. It's easier to do quick course corrections than a large one, and I had to do a large one. I would say that, one of the reasons I didn't pick up on it was honestly, I would say that I had my own emotional intelligence was underdeveloped to pick up that people were uncomfortable around me. But I did eventually get that feedback. But that is something that I definitely try to keep in mind, that that's not a natural skill for me. So I have to think about and make sure I pay attention to how people are reacting to me. But yeah, that was, I mean, there's a little bit of a leadership soft skill problem that person had, the person that was running that said, because they should have pulled me aside after 2 or 3 incidents and said, "Hey, I'm hearing that you're coming off as a bit rude. Here's some specific cases." But yeah, I eventually got that feedback. But one thing is, people that I interacted with all the time weren't comfortable saying that to me because they wanted to be polite in their own way. They didn't want to say you're being rude. But yeah,
it's tough. I
All
agree
right,
with.
so let's we have a question here from Slack channel, which also happens to be a question that I was going to end with, and it's from Insia Hakim. Thank you very much for the question. And the question is, how do you improve your soft skills? So any tips that you may offer us on ways to get better at soft skills?
I think that it's like, and I don't know how helpful this will be, but it's really just a practice. It's a practice thing, right? I think the more experience you have, the more like reflective you are about things. you will learn more, right? Don't take anything for granted. Look back at how something went, and then think about how could I have done that differently, or did the outcome that I was expecting happen, and just try to kind of study off of it. Other than that, I know that, and I think this is something that Joel maybe had mentioned before, but just it does soft skills, and I think you guys have been alluding to it too. It doesn't have to be only in your work, right? I think soft is, and just like Matt has said, soft is a personal thing, right? It's a human to human thing, right? Talk to a waitress more, talk to a waiter more, talk to a barista, like if you interacting with someone that you normally wouldn't talk, ask how their day is, I care deeply about people, and that will come naturally, and that will just, the more comfortable you get with that, the better you'll be at it. And it's like riding a bike, right? You do it, and then it becomes natural, and then you never forget it. And then that would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Sure. Can I jump in?
Yeah. Please.
Okay. So Bryce, you said writing stuff down was really important. I feel like that's like a great way to kind of develop your soft skills. If you can write stuff down, that means you're kind of like actively processing what's being said. You're truly listening to it, and you can give like a thoughtful response instead of maybe kind of jumping off. Maybe you would, I don't know, jump off topic, or it helps. At least it helps me process what's being said, and that's and it doesn't necessarily need to be a work. Even if you had like a journal or something, just writing stuff down and getting your thoughts down on paper, I think is really helpful. Conditioning yourself not to be afraid of silence. So instead of like constantly, like I used to do this a lot, where I'd constantly try to think of a response while somebody is talking to me. But I found that if I'm just focusing on what the person is saying in their entirety, then I can kind of formulate actual intelligent response instead of just kind of spewing something out, which I think has helped me at least. Eagerly volunteering for projects. I feel like you can do that in a private life, like maybe a friend of a friend needs help with a website, or your work is offering like volunteer opportunities. So there's pretty much no downside to that, and there's tons of upside to all that stuff. And then just making lists, kind of prioritizing your personal life, that can help your like time management skills. Like I have a Trello board where I just kind of put all my home projects that I'm working on, and it kind of helps me figure out how those projects interact. And like you wouldn't want to install a sprinkler system after you put down new sod or something. So you can kind of like map those out, and just, it helps you with your time management, I think.
Definitely.
I would think so. For me, when I was trying to get better at really kind of talking to people and being more like, I would say, small talk, and being able to engage with people better in conversation. So one thing I like to think about is, I like to, when I coach people too, I say, I like to pair a weakness with something you're good at, or something you have an natural interest in, because then it makes it easier to grow in that area. So for me, my mother is a Trekkie. So actually I'm a Trekkie too, by birth. She took me to Star Trek 2. It's my first movie. So I think by birth, I can say that now. I went to Star Trek conventions as a child and stuff like that. So, but one thing that when I wanted to kind of practice talking to other people, I started talking to people that had common interests with me, whether it be Star Trek, whether it be playing a particular video game. I know that we can't right now with COVID, but there's places, for example, I know in the Ann Arbor area that host board games. That's your thing. That you can go and meet up with people that have that. So you start with that common interest, and then you can start to meet people and ask them how they're doing and learn more about them, because it's a kind of comparable to your work situation, because maybe the person that you're working with doesn't like playing board games, but your common thing you have there is you both work at the same place and you're both working on the same project. So I would say, if you want something a little more comfortable and safer, I started with things that my own kind of geeky interests, and meeting people that had those interests, and just making friends in those circles, because it was a lot. I wasn't as stressed out, and we already had something to start with, which is, philosophical thoughts about why DS9 may be one of the best Star Trek series that's ever created.
All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So we still have about 7 minutes. But before we jump there, just want to thank everyone that joined us and remind you that we do have some more events on cantoncoders.org. Please go there, take a look at our Eventbrite, jump on our Slack channel, on Twitch. We have many more events every week. And after this particular session, we are having Lean Coffee, where we'll all get together and invite more people onto the Zoom meeting, and we can be more interactive and answer live questions and have some more senior developers and leaders that are part of our community join in and give their perspective and thoughts about this discussion and about soft skills in general. So looking forward to seeing you there. I did want to also get to this question, which is about how to communicate perhaps people from different cultural backgrounds, not maybe just culture, people with different value systems, right? How do you respectfully be cognizant of their values, talk to them, and if you have disagreements, how do you have a healthy debate? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think that as long as you are empathetic about other people, you view other people have other thoughts, they may be different to yours, and you try to hear them out and you try to learn. You know, you can always learn from anything. We don't have to match 100%. We don't have to match 10%, right? We just learn, and then if you disagree, if you're coming from a place of respect and understanding, I think you're gonna get something positive out of the situation. So I think as long as you're empathetic, people are different, and I think you'll go a long way there. I'll be brief.
Okay, thank you, Bryce. Anyone else with some thoughts?
I would second the empathy. It's extremely important, patience. So for me, what the experience, and also draw from your own experiences as much best you can, where you've been in the reverse situation, where you're new to a corporate culture or you're new on the team. One of the things that I draw from experience that I draw from whenever I'm dealing with something particularly frustrating, where I feel like I'm kind of clashing with someone, particularly talking about different value systems, is I did my junior year of high school. I was an exchange student in Germany. So I was speaking German, I was living in a different culture, and I was in a very I was the person that was standing out and as far as how I behaved and what was normal. So I thought I reflected on how I felt during that situation where I had my own anxieties about speaking up, because literally I was speaking a language I hadn't spoken, and that I was learning. And I could keep that in mind and try to give people the psychological safety to express their opinions. And I try to focus on like being empathetic. And as a leader, one thing I try to focus on is giving my team a safe space, and giving them safety to express their opinions. But I would say if you have any experiences like that, when you're getting frustrated, that when I get frustrated with someone, and maybe it's because it's a language barrier, I remember, you know what, I have to step back and go, like, I was in that same situation once, and I know what they're feeling, and I need to be more patient, and I need to be kinder. And that's how I kind of center myself whenever I get frustrated, when I'm dealing with someone that maybe I don't think is understanding me. And it may be down to a cultural different value system.
Definitely.
Excellent thoughts. Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, echo what both Bryce and Caryn said. I mean, empathy is really important, willingness to compromise, and being just frank and clear on how you value different things. Like if you're talking about pair programming, maybe if one of you really likes doing it, the other one doesn't care either way, you can kind of figure out what other people value, and then that and how people feel about other things, and that kind of helps you figure out where to compromise, I guess. I don't know if that came across really clearly, but I think just that ability to compromise and the empathy is very important in those situations.
One thought I had at the beginning of this conversation was something you said, Matt, about social skills extending to personal, right? And even as far as practicing, right? It's not really about just practicing at work. You can start practicing at home with the close people that you're used to. I practice with my kids, right? I practice when I need to communicate something to them clearly and have them echo it back. In my mind, I'm practicing. I'm trying to use them and see how I get an idea across. And even for motivation, kids will piss you off, right? But learning how to handle that, there's some skills there that translate even to the workplace. So the idea of social skills being just in all parts of our lives, not just in the workplace, is important to recognize and use every opportunity to practice it as much as possible.
Exactly.
All right, we are at time here. Thank you so much again. I'm being told to land the plane.
Can we each say some? Sorry to interrupt. I'm just over. Maybe Joel will be pissed, but can we just close it out with something? I've been trying to save a couple of things that I did want to share to the audience that I've been thinking.
Gonna go out with the bang? All right, that's fine. So we'll let you go last. Just 2 more minutes, okay? Matt, final closing statement. Closing remarks.
Yeah, just kind of reiterating, I mean, these soft skills, I mean, it's something that, like when you're applying for jobs, I feel like they're very heavy on the hard skills, but at least our job descriptions are. But I feel like, as I think everybody on the panel has said, the soft skills are what we're really looking for. So practicing these, taking that back, and doing these on a regular basis, improving yourself in these. You're never going to get to be perfect in any of these, but you can always continuously grow. And so I think focusing on that continuous growth for these skills is extremely important. And I think your quality of life is definitely going to improve regardless of what you choose to do.
Thank you. Great. Caryn?
I said it earlier and I'll repeat it. Creating software is a team sport. You will work in a team. You will work with other people. You are not going to be coding alone in your basement. That's not going to be your career. Your career is going to be working with other people. You're going to be talking to people who aren't engineers and who don't understand how to code. And this is, you know, you need to learn how to work in that environment. And also, I think those skills, as a lot of people have talked about in your personal life, when you start having more empathy and more emotional intelligence, you'll actually, I personally found that I interacted with people outside of my work much better. It helps me with when I've been volunteering and working with other volunteers. It helps me when I have a conflict with a neighbor. These are things that these will translate. I think I heard someone in our group say that he started being better. His dates went better. You know, I'm not gonna say who it was, but someone said that. So these skills definitely translate outside. But you know, the thing about software, you are going to work with other people. You are going to talk to non-technical people. You are going to have to communicate your ideas out, and your technical skills will only get you in the door, but they won't actually get you to the next level.
Right. Well, Caryn, I recorded exactly what Mr. X said. He said that he used to talk too much and he couldn't get a date. And then when he started listening, he started to get a date. So that's what Mr. X said. Bryce, take us home.
Thanks, Gugu. Yeah, I think that one thing I wanted to share, and I've been on a huge Brené Brown kick, so I'm gonna lay some stuff out here. I would suggest anyone to read this stuff, but we've laid out a lot of tactical things here. What soft skills are important, what soft skills we've felt that have helped us or have helped people that are on our teams or colleagues, right? I think one thing that I wanted to share is that, and especially kind of like the question that you brought up, sometimes this is very unnatural for us, we have to step out of what we're used to, and it's challenging. So I would just challenge everyone, be courageous. Okay, it may not come naturally. You may be afraid of failure. You may be afraid of what people say, but you will reap the rewards if you put yourself out there, and you dare greatly, right? And so, like, I'll end it with, there's a great what do you call it, poem or quote, "The Man in the Arena." This was Theodore Roosevelt, right? He said this, right? So it's I would suggest everyone to read it, but it's not about what people that are not doing the battle with you or not in the fight think about you. It's about the people that are going through it with you. And so don't be afraid of what people are going to think if you try to put yourself out there. Just be courageous and get past that, and you will benefit from it, and all the other things will come naturally. So that's what I would end with.
Bam. Lovely. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much to the panel. This was really a lot of fun. I will talk to the producer and we will do it again with a different topic. There's lots that I think we can go to, like feedback. We didn't talk enough about feedback, receiving feedback. There's lots as people managers that you have to continue to become better at.
Definitely.
So thank you. I hope the Twitterverse or Twitchverse out there enjoyed the live stream. We are about to be out. Peace.
Thanks, Gugu.
Thanks, Gugu. Thanks,
Thank
Caryn.
you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone.